Well, when I think of boxing, I look at it as a game of physical chess. A lot of people in this sport don't always play chess. A lot of them play checkers, but it's the guys who play chess, they're the ones that are usually most successful in this game of boxing. So when you play chess, it's not always about, which person collects the most pieces from his opponent. A lot of it is, positioning on the board. Because when you make one move, you're usually thinking two or three moves ahead. And one move means a lot more, regardless if you take a piece or not, because it's putting you in position to get to the end game. And as everyone knows, the end game in chess is putting your opponent in checkmate. You know, the way people score boxing matches, obviously we all use the four areas that we're supposed to use, but the interpretation of those four areas, which is clean, effective punching, effective aggressiveness, defense, and ring generalship, the interpretation of those four areas is totally different from person to person. And the understanding of those four areas is different from person to person. So let's talk about this fight, Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo Alvarez, the rematch, which is coming up in September. And let me give you my early thoughts on this fight. Well, in the first fight, as many people, I had Gennady Golovkin winning. About 95% of the people that I've talked to and that I've communicated with over the internet, pretty much everyone feels as though Gennady Golovkin won. And only a few people think that Canelo Alvarez won that first fight. But again, I think we can all agree that neither man really dominated the other man. Okay? But at the end of the day, in my opinion, Canelo Alvarez fought a lot better than I anticipated and that most people anticipated. Pretty much fought the fight of his life. And at the end of the day, he still lost on just about everyone's scorecard. And, given the controversial scorecards, he walked away with a draw, which many people did not agree with, which is fine. I mean, that's how boxing works. And it's pretty sad that before every Canelo fight, we find ourselves saying, well, doesn't matter. As long as the fight goes to the end and goes to the decision and lasts the full 12 rounds, he's probably going to get the benefit of the doubt and some favorable treatment by the judges. And he's going to win regardless or not, regardless of how the fight played out or not, because again, the perception is there's a cloud over his head. He's getting preferential treatment. And it's pretty sad that going into this rematch, a lot of people are saying, well, you know what? He's probably going to get the same benefit of the doubt in this fight if it does go the full 12 rounds. And I kind of disagree with that because given all of the controversy and the negative cloud that is over this event because of him failing the drug test, two drug tests, testing positive for clenbuterol, I don't think he's that darling anymore. Even though he still is the cash cow, I don't think anyone else wants to be linked to the controversy that has surrounded Canelo Alvarez, whether it be the referees, the judges, hand wraps, failing the two drug tests and getting preferential treatment because of that. I think that, the clock has run out on Canelo Alvarez. I think he's exercised all his preferential treatment, and I think people are probably starting to wise up and say, you know what, we can't keep doing this because if we're involved in this controversy, then it's going to look bad on us. So going back to what I said, the potential for that is there in this fight, but I think, again, enough is enough. I think people have come to the point where, yeah, enough is enough. We don't want to continuously be linked into that. Good morning, Miss Boxing Fanatic. How you doing? Um, so getting to this fight again, in the first fight, a lot of people, based upon him, Canelo Alvarez failing those drug tests, There's a lot of speculation that maybe in the first fight he was on something. Um, because he did look bigger than usual, and muscular, and very cut up, and just very, very different than you're used to seeing him. We're used to seeing him drawn out. He looked really full. Obviously, he moved up in weight, but again, when you move up in weight, you don't tend to, retain that definition and that hardness that you do when you're in the lower weight classes. But with that being said, Canelo Alvarez fought the fight of his life. Gennady Golovkin didn't. Gennady Golovkin looked a little bit off. Could have been caught up in the moment, this being his first big event, his big pay-per-view event for him, first time being in a fight of this magnitude. Did he get caught up in all the glitz and glamour? Possibly. But not only that, he was, his wife was having their first child, I believe. And obviously that's a great thing. It's a beautiful, important thing in a person's life when they're having their first child. But again, it also drains that person because they have to focus on, is my baby going to be all right? How's he or she doing early on? How's the mother doing? You're constantly thinking of that child and your partner or the mother of that child, and it drains you. So we don't want to make excuses, but we want to just look at the human aspect of what was going on in Gennady Golovkin's life. And we also want to look at, going through a tough negotiation, being mistreated throughout that whole negotiation, getting only 30% when he was the champion, having all the belts. Again, that's a negative downside as well. So he had to carry all those things into the ring with him. And regardless of all that, he still won the fight, in my opinion. I scored at 7-5, and I felt as though I gave Canelo Alvarez every amount of benefit of the doubt that I could have possibly given him. I gave him the majority of the swing rounds. And so if I didn't give him the swing rounds, this could have easily been a 9-3 fight for Golovkin. It's quite possible it could have been that way. But because I gave Canelo swing rounds, I had it 7-5. So I felt, hey, good morning, Actual Boxing Facts and Boxing Angel. Good morning, everyone in the chat. Forgive me if I don't respond to you because I'm on the phone right now, so I won't be able to respond to everybody, but I'll verbally respond to you. I won't be able to type too much because, again, I am using the phone, and I will try to answer all your questions as they pop up on the sidebar. So, again, you had one guy who fought the fight of his life, did better than most people anticipated, and you had another guy who didn't. So one guy pretty much had his A game, the other guy didn't, and he still won the fight. So, that's what you have to look at. So going into this fight, I think Golovkin has momentum. As Corey Lee Boxon said, I think that the layoff for Canelo, he's been off, he'll be off almost close to, I want to say, a year, basically, pretty close to a year, whereas Gennady Golovkin did have that interim fight with Vanes Martirosyan. And not only that, Canelo's got some demons he's dealing with. He's got to deal with all that negative press he's gotten, all of the anguish, all of the criticism. That's going to weigh heavily on him, okay? So can he bring that same intensity into the ring that he brought in the first fight? And I think with Golovkin, I think he's going to say to himself, I possibly fought a guy who was juiced in the first fight. And in this fight, he won't be able to be juiced because the drug testing is going to be very stringent. So Gennady Golovkin has that benefit in his favor. So mentally, he's saying to himself, you know what? I'm going to fight a guy who possibly isn't going to be the same guy. He's going to probably be less than what I fought in the first fight. And also that psychological victory. The first bell rings, the fight starts before the first bell even rings. And by him being able to, win battle of negotiations, because it was supposed to be 65-35, and now it's possibly 40-40 or 42, which 42 and a half, or at least 45. It's pretty close to 45 now. By him having that psychological victory over Team Canelo and Team Alvarez, by getting a bigger share than what he originally asked for, that's a win in the victory cap. So again, he still may be the B-side, but maybe not as much as people think and as Team Alvarez thought. He had that ace in the hole with that fight lined up with Billy Joe Saunders, which would have been probably a more challenging and more intriguing fight. But regardless, here we are. And I think this is going to be a different Gennady Golovkin, and I think it's going to be a different Canelo Alvarez. But the thing is the difference is we're going to see a different Gennady Golovkin in the positive, whereas I think we're going to see a different Canelo Alvarez in the negative because of all those things I just mentioned. So let's get back to the analysis of the fight and how I think this rematch is going to play out. Now, in the opening statement that I made, I talked about chess. And again, I reiterate that it's not always about which player collects the most pieces from the other player. It's about positioning on the board. And if you look at the first fight, Gennady Golovkin pretty much put Canelo Alvarez where he wanted to put him. Now, neither guy landed a lot of punches, and neither guy was hurt in the fight. Some, there was a couple clean shots here and there by both guys, but Gennady Golovkin put Canelo Alvarez on the ropes, whether or not he forced him there or Canelo Alvarez willingly went there. He went there for a reason. He went there to conserve energy. And he went there to try to suck Golovkin into traps. Golovkin didn't, bite on those traps. But, Canelo Alvarez would make Golovkin miss, but he didn't make him pay. And people compared that strategy and those tactics to Floyd Mayweather. And again, Canelo Alvarez is not Floyd Mayweather. I'm not saying that he's the same guy. Just because two fighters share a have the same another guy, we could be wearing a shirt, and so we share that similarity. But the two people that are wearing that shirt are the same person. They're not the same. So just because Canelo Alvarez did some similar things that Floyd Mayweather does, let's really look deep into that. So Floyd Mayweather, later in his career, did go to the ropes. He would try to suck guys in. He would try to conserve his energy. He would try to, make a guy miss, and he would make him pay. But Floyd Mayweather did that after already putting in the early work in the round. So the last 45 seconds of the round, he would go to the ropes and conserve energy and play that game of, I'm going to make you miss, but I'm going to make you pay. Canelo Alvarez went right to the ropes early in rounds, and he tried to suck, Golovkin into traps. But Golovkin never went into that mid-range area where Canelo Alvarez is most dangerous, because Canelo Alvarez is he's a mid-range guy. He's not a great inside fighter. He's not a great outside fighter. He's a mid-range guy. He likes to crank up that left hook from that mid-range area, and that's where he gets the most leverage, and he's most effective with his punches. Gennady Golovkin never went into that mid-range area. Very rarely he did. So Golovkin did have Canelo where he wanted him, but for whatever reason, he could have been wary of counters. But again, as the fight wore on, he started opening up a little bit more and started feeling comfortable. But the thing is, he had him where he wanted to be, but he just wasn't taking advantage of the positioning he had. Because think about this. If someone told you before the fight that Canelo Alvarez was going to be on the ropes for the most of the fight, and Gennady Golovkin was going to be, moving forward most of the fight and applying pressure most of the fight, you would say this is a fight that is favorable and beneficial to Gennady Golovkin. So he pretty much had Canelo where he wanted, but he didn't take advantage of that positioning. So that's what I'm talking about, chess. It doesn't matter that he wasn't landing a lot of shots. He was still forcing and making Canelo have to be on defense. And yeah, you do score defense, but again, you also score ring generalship and effective aggressiveness. So in the game of chess, when a lot of pieces aren't being exchanged, but one opponent is putting the other opponent into a position where later in the game, he's going to be able to be checkmated, even though a lot of pieces aren't exchanged, then you have to give that guy credit for doing that. So you have to give Gennady Golovkin credit for at least trying to make the fight, number one. And number two, he was putting Canelo Alvarez in a position where he was forced to be defensive. And it looked flashy that he was making Gennady Golovkin miss. But again, you can score defense, but also I think effective aggressiveness along with ring generalship trumps the defense. So he was successful, Gennady Golovkin, in 2 areas where Canelo Alvarez was really only successful in 1. So in a fight where you're looking for, every reason to give someone a round, and if it's a close fight and it's hard to distinguish who's winning the round, you have to look at the little things. And neither guy landed a lot of shots, but one guy was the effective aggressor and one guy was the ring general, because he was putting the other guy on the ropes, which put the other guy in a defensive position, which changed the other guy's offensive strategies and attack. Because unless you are making a guy miss and you're making him pay after making him miss while you're on the ropes, a la Floyd Mayweather, then you're not going to get a ton of credit just hanging on the ropes playing defense. So based off of that, I think that Gennady Golovkin won a lot of those close rounds. And I think a lot of people agree with me in that regard. So in this fight, I think I said earlier that we're going to see a different Gennady Golovkin. Again, he's got that chip on his shoulder. He's got that in the bank for Team Alvarez. Another round in the bank is, not Team Alvarez, Team Golovkin. I apologize. One round in the bank for Team Golovkin. Now, the other round in the bank is they were able to make the media darling Canelo Alvarez be the bad guy. They played this perfectly. They played the hand perfectly. They sat there and regardless of losing the payday in the first fight, their goal was, we're right. This guy, we believe, did something wrong, and he needs to be punished for it. No slap on the wrist, and he needs to be looked at as, this guy could possibly be tainted. So that's another round in the bank for Team Golovkin. And I think going into this second fight, even though Gennady Golovkin is slipping, I think we're going to see the best Gennady Golovkin we've seen in a long time. This is going to be a highlight reel type performance from Gennady Golovkin, because this time he knows that, this guy really didn't hurt me in the first fight. I know he's going to go to the ropes. I know he's going to try to slow the pace of the fight down. So when he's not fighting, I'm going to be fighting. I was throwing punches at him and I was missing, but he didn't try to make me pay. So now I know that, I can empty out against this guy. I can throw more punches. And obviously, I'm still going to have to be defensively responsible. But I know that I can outwork this guy like I did in the first fight. So it's not about now just the work. Now it's about the quality of work. I think he's going to go to the body more this time. I think he's going to have that, big fight jitters. I think that's going to be gone in this fight. His wife's not having another baby, so this mental stress of that's not going to be involved. And I think now that he has that chip on his shoulder, I think he's going into this fight with the mentality that he is the A side, even though he's probably not. But he's going into this fight with a different mentality. Now he's angry. And when an angry Gennady Golovkin could be a dangerous Gennady Golovkin. Could be when he comes into this fight and brings that aggressiveness, I think it's going to be a little bit magnified in this fight. And I think we're going to see him go to the body more. I think we're going to see him crank up those uppercuts on the inside, crank up those short left hooks on the inside. So I think we're going to see Gennady Golovkin at his best. And I don't think we're going to see that same Canelo Alvarez we saw in the first fight. So based off of that, I actually believe that Gennady Golovkin is going to knock out Canelo Alvarez this time. I know I said it in the first fight that was going to happen, but I'm pretty confident it's going to happen this time. I'm going to say Gennady Golovkin is going to stop Canelo Alvarez in 10 rounds, because I feel as though he's going to go deep in that pocket, take that mid-range area away from Canelo Alvarez, smother that left hook that he loves to crank up. And when he's on the ropes squared up, I think he's just going to go batshit crazy, throwing body shots and throwing short uppercuts on the inside. I really believe that Gennady Golovkin is going to be a monster in this fight. He is going to grind away at Canelo Alvarez, and he is not going to stop. He's not going to allow him to take breaks. And when he's not punching Canelo Alvarez, I think Gennady Golovkin will be punching. And the difference is, I think his output is going to be a little bit more in this fight, probably a lot more. And I think we're going to see a lot more body punching, because Abel Sanchez, Golovkin's trainer, said that was sorely missed in the first fight. It was glaringly absent. And I do not think that it's going to be absent in this fight. And based off of that, I think that, he is going to stop Canelo Alvarez, because he's going to wear him down. He's going to pin him up against the ropes, and he's going to be working on the inside. And Canelo Alvarez is not going to be in his comfort zone, which is that mid-range area where he can crank up that left hook. And I think Gennady Golovkin is going to get the victory this time. And again, I'm going to be the conspiracy theorist. This could be a different Canelo Alvarez based on the fact that, was he using diuretics? Was he, what was he using in the first fight? If I want to suspect him, which I do suspect that maybe in the first fight he was using something, I just highly suspect that he was. And based off of, what we've seen so far with the drug tests and all this, now he's part of the VADA clean boxing program. Now he knows that he's going to be watched closely. That's mental stress too. So Canelo could maybe be reckless in this fight, take some chances that he normally wouldn't have, and basically fight out of his character, because he's got to prove to people, hey man, this is, I wasn't dirty in the first fight, and I'm definitely not dirty in this fight. So I got to go out there and prove that this is how I am under the strict, stringent drug testing. This is the real, Canelo Alvarez. This is me. So he's got to prove a lot of people wrong. And because of that, he may be a little bit more aggressive than he would like to be. He may fight out of character, and he may play more even so into Gennady Golovkin's hands based upon the fact that he has to prove something. Whereas Gennady Golovkin can rest assured. Yeah, sorry about that. I had a weak connection. I went in and out in there. I had to turn off the Wi-Fi. I'm using the data now. But yeah, what do you guys think? Leave the comments in the comment section. Any questions? Anything that you feel as though you want to challenge me on, any of my points, feel free to do so. But I'm standing firm on my prediction. I think Gennady Golovkin is going to win this fight by 10th round stoppage. Beeb is out.